Good morning. Being a former coach and a former Nittany Lion Club director, I have to start off with one of our most well-known traditions. We are. Penn State. We are. Penn State. We are. Penn State. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, so we're here to talk about tradition and positive change. Okay, and obviously that's one of our best traditions here at Penn State, but there's many others. And what we're going to talk about is honoring the past and celebrating the present, but roaring into the future. And when I look out and see all the young students and the faculty and staff and members of the community, it's all about us coming together, right, for the greater good of Happy Valley, Center, Pennsylvania, and for the state, the nation, and the world. So when you think about some of the things that have taken place over the years, we think of good traditions like Thon. 78 kids back then in 73 started off dancing, raised $2,000. Today, 708 over in the Bryce Jordan Center. And they raised $13 million for a total of over $127 million for kids with cancer. That's a great tradition, as we all know. But we also have a tradition of great faculty, staff, and researchers here, world-class researchers like Dr. James Casting over in the Geosciences Department, who just won a National Academy of Sciences award. We also get world-class degrees. We know that our Penn State degrees mean we're going to get hired out there in that real world. And oh, by the way, I'm from a Penn State family. My wife, who's here, is a Penn State grad. That's my daughter, and if you notice, it says "finally" on her mortarboard. And so we're all looking forward to this. That's one off the payroll for me. We also have a tradition of philanthropy here at Penn State, and if you've never been over to the Smith Arboretum, go over there, read, meditate, pray, just enjoy it, okay? But from the gift of the Smith family, we all get to enjoy the Arboretum. We're also a tradition of alumni involvement. We've got the largest alumni association in the world and proud membership of over 170,000 dues-paying members, and they get to enjoy the Hintz Family Alumni Center, another philanthropic gift. And, went a little too fast there. And of course, we have the tradition of the creamery. You never get too far away, and when you come back, you want to have your creamery ice cream. And of course, my friend, the stately Nittany Lion, okay? How many of you have ever climbed Mount Nittany? Okay, if you haven't, you got to do that. My wife serves on the board for the Mount Nittany Conservancy. Okay, her, John Hook, and a bunch of other people in town are there to try to preserve the history of that mountain so that there's never going to be development. So it's going to be there for tradition for years and years to come. Tailgating, of course. That gentleman in the front is my 95-year-old father-in-law. That's Francis Smitty Smith. Okay. And he still goes to the games and he still enjoys tailgating with the family and friends. Of course, the Blue Band, the best marching band in the country, and our famous drum major Flip, okay? Homecoming Parade and Guarding the Lion Shrine, which are near and dear to my heart because of the Lion Ambassador's involvement in that. And also our athletic traditions, the whiteout at our events, in particular at Beaver Stadium, nationally recognized, and the singing of the alma mater. If you ever go to any of our athletic events now and many other events across campus, we sing the alma mater with pride, with reverence, with meaning, and it's heartfelt, especially when we get to the verse that says, "May no act of ours bring shame." We know that. This game was against Army. And I was particularly moved by this because when we went down to sing the alma mater, the cadets came and stood with us, behind us, okay? It was sending shivers up my spine. It was such an amazing moment. But the alma mater wasn't always a good tradition. And those of you that went to school in the 70s and 80s may know what I mean. There was a time when none of us knew the words. So we used to sing in unison as the student body, drowning out the alums. We don't know the goddamn words. Okay, that was a bad tradition. okay? I like the new one a lot better. So let's talk about a few other bygone traditions here at Penn State. When you were a freshman, you used to have to wear a dink, okay? And a sign saying who you were, what your major was, and where you were from. Easily identified, okay? The young ladies here had to wear green ribbons in their hair and do the maypole dance, okay? And of course, we had the infamous pushball competition between the freshman class and the sophomore class. That is, went too far there. That is a risk manager's nightmare, okay? So, at any rate, we also had the Phi-Psi 500. Now picture this. We used to have a beer drinking race down Beaver Avenue and Calder Way where we basically shut down downtown. Now it was for a good cause. It raised money. Probably a tradition that's better to be gone, okay? We talk about the most dangerous, phrase in our language being, we've always done it that way, okay? Admiral Grace Hopper said that quote. She was one of the first female admirals in the United States Navy. Think about being a difference maker, okay? That was back in World War II through the Korean War, okay? What you probably don't know about her was she was also instrumental in being one of the first computer scientists and working with compiling. She's actually credited with coming up with the word debugging, okay? Think about that, because you're gonna hear a talk a little later about women in STEM, okay? And so she was a trailblazer. She was a difference maker, and that's one of the things we're gonna talk about is being a DM, a difference maker. Everybody here can be a difference maker. You've heard it from the other speakers, okay? The only thing that's stopping you is getting some inertia and some momentum and get going. Look in the mirror, get into the action habit. Will you have the courage to do what has to be done when it has to be done at that right moment, okay? Now I'll take you back to 1940s, and the first black football player that was a starter here at Penn State was Wally Triplett, okay? Back in those days, there were still schools that were segregated. They would not play teams who had black athletes, okay? We canceled a game with the University of Miami because they would not play us if we brought our players that were African American, okay? The team voted not to go. And in the 1948 Cotton Bowl, SMU wanted us to leave our players behind, and team captain Steve Suey said, we play all or we play none. And they let our players go. Wally became the first black player to be drafted in the NFL and play in the NFL. And he still comes back today, and there he is with Coach Franklin recently, okay? What a difference maker Wally was. So now we're talking about traditions that maybe aren't so great, and how do we arrange to do things with them? Initiations. I was initiated, okay, as a student athlete. I was a coach, and we knew initiations were going on. The question is, are they inclusive or divisive, okay? Well, hazing back in the day, it was a rite of passage. Everybody just took it for granted. Why? Well, hey, we went through it. We survived it. You got to do it. Nah, not so fast, okay? Isn't it more important to have a welcoming onboarding and initiation orientation, okay? And what about giving the kids the history and culture of your organization or your team? Having mentorship and positive support. We know this works because the research has been done to show that hazing is associated with pulling teams and organizations apart, not creating cohesive atmospheres. And there were reports of deaths, injuries, kids having to transfer. That's not what we're all about. In 44 states, hazing is now outlawed, and that's a good, positive change, okay? So I like to use what I call the CEC test, and that is civility, empathy, and compromise, okay? If it can pass these tests, then the tradition may be a pretty good one. We live in the age of rage. We live in this social media-driven world where we have critics without credentials who hide behind their smartphones and their computers, and it will just be hateful and spiteful and just want to be angry about everything. And how do we combat that? How do we go about fixing that challenge? I believe it's through common courtesy and mutual respect. Let me say that again. Common courtesy and mutual respect. Context and perspective, okay? We have to be able to follow the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated, okay? And be consistent, be fair, be firm, but do it with dignity, okay? We're all in this together. We want to make this whole place better. Empathy. What has happened to good old-fashioned debate, okay? There's nothing wrong. That's what we're here for. If we disagree, that's okay. We don't have to be disagreeable, okay? Remember that there's always more to the story. Be a critical thinker. Think for yourself. Agree to disagree without being disagree. And walk a mile in another person's shoes. Have some empathy. You know, if you do and you still disagree, you're a mile away from that person and you got their shoes, okay? So the lost art of compromise, remember it's a win-win solution. I'm sitting over here with Aiming Lee, who's our facilitator, and we talked about why does it have to be a zero-sum game? Why can't we have a situation where we come to a win-win solution? Doing it for the greater good, okay? And why don't we try to remember to leave our egos at the door, okay? Egos don't do anything for anybody. Okay, check your ego in at the door. Develop options and make them informed choices, just like John was talking about. Let's get together and let's make smart decisions on how we spend our resources and what we do. We want to take the best of the old with the context of today and make a better tomorrow. Okay, so now real quickly, in hockey, back in 1909, Herb Betts was an electrical engineering student, a junior. Penn State played the first collegiate hockey game against Carnegie Tech, which is now Carnegie Mellon, back in the Duquesne Gardens. It looked like hockey was going to become a varsity sport. Well, it wasn't until 1940 that it actually happened. All right, how about those uniforms? A freshman, another difference maker, Roy Scott, got together and got 3,000 signatures along with friends of his to resurrect club hockey 65 years later. And that allowed this freshman, yeah, that's me with the big bushy hair, get a chance to play hockey here. We started women's hockey in the mid-90s, and on 2010, September 17th, that's when everything changed, when Terry Pegula, passionate about Penn State, passionate about hockey, made that historic gift that got us Pegula Ice Arena, which is near and dear to my heart, obviously, and a new tradition, the students in the Roar Zone. So remember, it's all about honoring the past, celebrating the present, and let's roar into the future. Thank you.